Henry VIII spent his life building an image of strength. He wanted to be remembered as a warrior king, a ruler who defeated his enemies, challenged the Pope, and changed England forever. But behind the walls of his palace, a different story was unfolding. The man who once appeared unstoppable was now fighting a battle he could never win. Not against another country, not against another king, but against his own failing body. In his final months, Henry VIII still wore the crown, but the man beneath it was slowly disappearing. The king who lost the image he created. When Henry VIII first came to the throne, he represented everything a Renaissance king wanted to be. Young, strong, confident. He rode horses, hunted, and competed in tournaments. Foreign visitors described him as an impressive figure. Henry understood the power of appearance. A king was not only supposed to rule. A king was supposed to look powerful. And for many years, Henry succeeded. His physical strength became part of his identity. The armor, the tournaments, the image of a fearless warrior. But that image depended on something Henry could not control. His own body. The body that began to betray him. As Henry grew older, years of injuries and poor health began changing his life. The leg wound from his famous jousting accident never fully disappeared. It repeatedly caused problems and affected his ability to move. At the same time, his increasing weight placed even more pressure on his weakened body. The activities that once defined him became impossible. The king who once rode into tournaments could no longer live the same way. His world became smaller. The hunting fields disappeared. The long rides disappeared. The physical confidence that shaped his youth slowly faded. Henry VIII was still king, but he was no longer the man people remembered. A palace that became a prison. Near the end of his life, Henry's health affected every part of his daily routine. Moving became difficult. Travel became complicated. Even simple tasks required assistance. The palace that once represented his power became the place where his limitations were impossible to hide. He still had servants. He still had wealth. He still had absolute authority. But none of those things could remove the pain. This was the cruel contradiction of Henry VIII's final years. The man who controlled England could no longer fully control himself. The king behind the public image. During official appearances, Henry remained the king. He dressed in royal clothing. He surrounded himself with symbols of authority. He demanded respect. But away from public view, people saw a very different reality. They saw a ruler who needed help. A man whose body could no longer support the image he had spent decades creating. Henry VIII had spent his entire reign proving that he was powerful. Now, his own physical condition exposed the limits of that power. He could command people. He could change laws. He could destroy enemies. But he could not force his body to obey. The final year of Henry VIII. By 1546, Henry VIII was approaching the end of his life. His health had seriously declined. His movement was limited. His old injuries continued to trouble him. Yet politically, Henry was still a powerful ruler. England was still shaped by his decisions. His break with Rome had changed the country's religious future. His actions had transformed the English monarchy. The kingdom still answered to Henry VIII. But the king himself was becoming weaker. Those closest to him understood what was happening. The man who had ruled for almost 40 years was reaching the final chapter of his life. The last days of a king. In January 1547, Henry VIII's condition became critical. The ruler who had once inspired fear across Europe was now nearing death inside his own palace. For almost 4 decades, he had controlled England. He had made decisions that changed history. He had removed rivals and reshaped the monarchy. But none of those achievements could protect him from the one thing every ruler eventually faces: time. Henry VIII died on January 28, 1547, at the age of 55. The most powerful man in England was gone. The truth behind the crown. History often remembers Henry VIII because of his power, his 6 marriages, his conflicts, his decisions that changed England forever. But his final years reveal another side of the king. A man who spent his life trying to appear unstoppable. only to discover that even a king had limits. Henry VIII could control a kingdom. He could change religion. He could decide the fate of others. But he could not escape aging. He could not defeat illness. And he could not save himself from his own failing body. The crown gave Henry VIII enormous power. But in the end, it could not protect the man wearing it. Henry VIII's final days were not the story of a defeated king. They were the story of a powerful man facing the one enemy no ruler can conquer: his own humanity. Because history remembers kings for the wars they win and the kingdoms they build. But sometimes, the most revealing moments come when the crown can no longer hide the person underneath.